You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
In an exclusive interview, FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino stated unequivocally, Jeffrey Epstein did in fact take his own life. And in the furthest reaches of the left, the anti-establishment, anti-government types, as well as the general MAGA base, nobody believes it. There is this middle-of-the-road, corporate-centrist, uniparty-loving space that's like, you know, they're liberals going, see conservatives? You're being humbled. You finally got your guys in, and what do? They tell you what we told you the whole time. Epstein took his own life. But Alex Jones is pushing back. Many others are saying, no, this doesn't add up. Based on what we know about this case, it does not make sense that he took his own life. And I got to tell you, it is jarring and strange to see someone like Dan Bongino say that, and he's been on the questioning Epstein the whole time on his show. Now, all of a sudden saying, I've read the files and Epstein took his own life. Listen, my friends, I got a lot to say on this. I do trust Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And sometimes you just don't want to believe what may actually be the case. But there's a lot to break down in this. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you one way or another I know anything about what Epstein did or didn't do. I know there's a lot of people who say, based on the story about the guards falling asleep, the camera stopped working, footage gets lost, all that stuff. They're like, ain't no way dude took his own life. Maybe. Or maybe he did. I mean, even when all of this stuff was going down, the point I made was, look, this guy, he's got all these videos with kids, the stuff that he was involved in. Yeah, he might have been like, I got to get out. Like, I'm taking the easy way out. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not the right way to describe it, but I think it's certainly plausible. Just hard to believe, you know what I mean? But let me do this. Let me break down exactly what they said. You can hear it for yourselves. And then Dan Bongino has a tweet.
Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
There's a little bit more to it than that, but I want to stress this. I don't think Kash and Dan are liars. And I think something that people don't want to accept, again, I am not asserting whether I know or do not know that Epstein took his own life. And I lean towards, Epstein probably didn't do it. Whatever. But what I do want to say is, I think there's a possibility a lot of people just don't want to accept that when Kash and Dan finally got in, they were like, oh, he did take his own life. I mean, I'll put it this way. You hope and you beg and you pray, thinking, man, when Dan Bongino gets in there, this dude is going to spill the beans. He's going to drop the proof. Then Dan gets in there and goes, oh, yeah, he killed himself. And people are like, no, Dan, I don't trust you. I don't believe you. I'm like, wait. Hold on. Come on, guys. I understand there are biases, and I'm not saying you have to believe that Epstein really did take his own life. I'm saying at least consider that Dan Bongino is your avatar. Not everybody. I'm saying the people who are like, we need someone like Dan in the FBI. He is your avatar. You chose him. You said, we need you. Do you think he is corruptible? I don't. And so that leads me to say, when I look at this, I go, really? Did Epstein actually take his own life? Okay, well, I'll consider it. The issue is this. When I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Epstein, I'm hoping that we will get a Kash and a Dan in. And my trust in them is not corrupted by the fact they're telling me something I don't want to hear. It doesn't mean I completely blindly believe them. It makes me go, interesting. I don't see, I'm going to say it again. Guys, say whatever you want about Dan coming out and saying this. Dan Bongino is not going to throw away what is he rocking? He got 8-figure company in revenue, throwing away the biggest live show in the country so he could go in and then just ruin his name and do nothing. That's just not reality, okay? Dan goes in, and what I see is a guy that I trust, that I want to be in, comes in and says, nah, it was a suicide. And then I go, okay, well, all right. I mean, I still don't know if I completely believe that. I believe maybe the documents show that. Maybe the evidence show doesn't mean I believe it. My point is this. Who would you believe? Who would you believe it actually turned out Epstein took his own life? Come on, guys. I know people don't want to believe that he did, but there is a plausible path towards why he did. Because there's tens of thousands of videos of him with children, and he got caught, and he's like, he can't handle it. We talked about what happened. Again, I still find it hard to believe. I still lean towards, I don't know, man. And that is say something about, I don't know if I completely believe what Dan is saying here, but let me show you what Dan actually said. He put out this tweet. He said, I haven't done any media interviews to this point because I want to keep the attention on the work. I don't work for myself anymore. I work for you. But it's important to relay to you what we're doing, and the media can be a tool for that. That's why we chose a long-form interview with Maria Bartiromo for our first interview. I hope you saw it. Dan, Kash, come on. You can choose to come on Timcast IRL. We'll have you. I hope you saw it. If you missed it, here are some of the questions that were asked and answered. Yes, we are moving FBI headquarters out of the Hoover building. The process has already begun. Stay tuned for updates on the details and the timelines. I was asked about some details surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case. I've reviewed the case. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. There's no evidence in the case file indicating otherwise. I'm not asking you to believe me or not. I'm telling you what exists and what doesn't. If new evidence surfaces, I'm happy to reevaluate. I'm going to pause right there. What he said here and what he said there, kind of different. Understand this. There's no evidence in the case file indicating otherwise. I said this when Kash first came out and said that, Epstein took his own life. He's relaying the official FBI position. That's it. They are not acting unprofessionally and coming out with speculative information on things they don't have. I think if you talk to Dan in private, he might be like, yeah, I still don't believe it, but we don't have any evidence. He's saying, you look at the files, you look at the evidence that we have, it's a suicide. There may be other evidence. He'll reevaluate. Okay. I don't think it's that big a deal. You know what I mean? Like, we want more information. We want accountability. I don't know we're ever going to get it, but, He goes on to say, I was challenged on accountability. It's a fair question. I aggressively responded because the director and I have been working tirelessly to uncover bad actors. We cannot get into HR specifics, and this creates an information vacuum. Unfortunately, bad actors looking to tell you a story, not the story, want you to believe we haven't taken harsh and decisive action against rogue employees. That's absolutely false, and the bad actors know it. Right. Dan can't come out and be like, here's all the people we fired. Listen, I got people who work here. When people no longer work here, I just shut up about it and leave them to their own business. Now, if someone did some weird, crazy, I don't know, killed a cat and threw it on the floor or something, yeah, we'd say that. We'd be like, this person was let go for killing small animals. But it's never happened. Usually it's like a disagreement how the job's getting done and how to move forward, and then we part ways. And I say, let them do their thing. We don't want beef. We don't want to fight. It just didn't work out. For them, you got legal issues. As the head of these departments and what you can and can't do legally, you can't come out and be like, this guy, here's what we did. Now you want to charge him with a crime? That stuff can go public. He goes on to say, we were asked about FBI priorities. The director and I told Maria that the president, attorney general, director, and I are absolutely committed to getting your FBI back to its roots. We'll make your community safer, illegal immigrant ops, child sex crimes investigations, 764 cases, and violent criminal fugitive apprehensions are all on our expanding radar. And while America is enjoying the summer, we were already planning a massive operation to clean up your streets. The counter-terror and counter-intel missions are critical. Yeah. I'd like to know about what you're doing with these rogue Democrats. I'd like to know what the Civil Rights Division, I'd like to know what the DOJ is doing with these criminal prosecutions against Trump, his lawyers. Now, they're not going to come out and just say it, but fine. Alex Jones issued a statement. Says, overall, I think Kash and Dan are doing a great job, but on this claim that Epstein's death is not a cover-up, I call BS. Epstein confirmed a suicide question. Question mark. Maria sits down with FBI's Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who claim Epstein did, in fact, commit suicide. Now let's get into why people don't believe the story. Number one, Maureen Comey, former disgraced FBI Director Comey's daughter, was in charge of Epstein's actual investigation, which isn't a good start. And Maureen allegedly lost the jailhouse CCTV tapes as a result of a technical error. Then on top of the lost erased tapes through a technical error, both guards fell asleep. who were supposed to be watching Epstein's cell, who was on 24-hour surveillance for suicide watch, which is standard procedure in every jail. There are rumors, and a video you can search, which claims nitrous oxide was used to knock the guards out, which then Epstein was taken out by another individual. Other claims the guards were paid not to talk. I don't know. That's pretty grandiose. Either way, for the tapes to mysteriously go missing or erased and to have not one but two guards both fall asleep coincidentally, the odds of both of these happening to occur at the same time in the same place are astronomical. We know Comeys are corrupt. James Comey was sent out a dog whistle to have the president assassinated. Why do you think you would do that? You know what's really crazy, guys? 8,647 days after 9/11, James Comey posts 8647. It's really weird. It's really weird that he did. Like, we live in a simulation, or these people do these things on purpose. So I don't know, man. But people are pretty pissed. Catherine Brodsky tweeted, Dan Bongino, quote, I was asked about the details surrounding the Epstein case. I've reviewed the case. Epstein killed himself. This quote, I think the reason why Kat's posting it and why it's being highlighted in that statement. And the reason I'm highlighting is many people have done the same thing. I'm not saying Kat's doing it, but I'm seeing a lot of people post this. They're saying, look at what he is and is not saying. Nah, I don't know. I think it might be wishful thinking. They're saying he's telling you what's in the files. He's not telling you a thing happened they don't have evidence of. He's giving you the official position of the FBI. I think it's just possible that Dan's telling you the truth. I don't know. I kind of agree with Alex to a great degree. But I'm going to say this again. If not Dan Bongino, who would you trust? Like, who would you trust? Dan Bongino. Everyone's like, we need Dan in. He's going to expose it all. He gets in and goes, guys, I looked at the files. It was a suicide. They're like, no, now I don't trust Dan Bongino. He's a liar. That's literally, Twitter is filled with people saying, I don't trust Dan anymore. I'm like, what? You want to believe something so bad that the guy you wanted to go in, you don't believe? And people are saying he's got a metaphorical gun to his head. Nah, he'd quit. Bro, he can turn around and go back to making 8 figures on the internet. If he was really being obstructed, he'd walk out. That's silly. Look, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. I just do think it's silly not to trust Dan and Kash. Maybe there's a deep state. Maybe the deep state's got them at metaphorical gunpoint. Or maybe they're telling you what the information they have is. Comment below. Let me know what you think. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. We got more segments coming up. We'll see you in a little bit.